Customizing and woodworking muzzleloader lab was easily my favorite project that I've completed thus far at SDI. It not only challenged the things that we learned in this class, as well as giving us hands-on experience into the world of building firearms, it also provided a much-needed break from all the classroom. To begin with, when I received my muzzleloader, I was ecstatic. Even though I knew there was a long way to go, could barely put it down of my excitement. The barrel, the stock, everything just seemed so new to me. I had never dealt with muzzle loaders before. The percussion lock and the smaller parts all immediately went into drawers so that I would not lose them, and the first thing I did was read the guide and the manual cover to cover to ensure that I knew what I needed to about this firearm. Then moved on to the inletting process, using the inletting ink provided to us as well as the woodworking tools that were also provided to us. This proved very time consuming but also very rewarding, as working it in bit by bit really showed me that patience is key in the world of gunsmithing and that precision is much more important than time saved, especially when it comes to your own projects. After carefully working this in piece by piece, taking off small shreds of wood at a time, I moved on to getting a easy fit onto the back of the firearm with the brass pieces. And I knew this wouldn't be perfect and that it was a rough fit, but I still took care not to go too much. Accidentally, I ended up taking off too much wood on the foot part of the brass, and so there's a slight unsightly gap between the bottom brass and the wood, but it's nothing that a little bit of hard work and elbow grease couldn't remedy. Along with this, I also ended up polishing the other brass pieces which had casting marks on them and getting rid of any unsightly amalgamations that had formed between the pieces, especially the more intricate ones such as the trigger guard. After this step, I decided to crown the barrel a little early and used a 25 mm diamond grit round ball point that was simply inserted into a drill in order to create a sort of hunter's crown, albeit a little bit steeper and deeper to avoid tearing the patch, which hasn't affected the firearm adversely at all, I might add. I then fit the rest of the brass except for the nose cap and moved on to installing the trigger. This too required inletting, and a careful patience process later brought me the success that I craved. The only problem I ran into during this is that the screw was too short to reach from the barrel tang all the way down through and connect to the trigger, so I had to use a slightly longer screw in order to complete the build. I then moved on to putting the barrel tenons in the barrel so that it could be fit and marking the stock. This is the step that I had the most trouble with, as despite taking time and making very precise measurements, the barrel tangs were so small that they avoided the drill bit a few times, and I even broke one because of the wiggling that occurred. I solved this by remeasuring, double checking, and triple checking my measurements, and for the front barrel tenon I only had to make one hole as opposed to the two that I needed to make for the rear barrel tenon. Next I fit the trigger guard, installed the front ramrod holder, and installed the nose cap after the barrel was secured into place. This showed me that all the pieces of the rifle fit together and that it was good to go into the final phase. I started the final phase by breaking down the rifle completely and sanding the stock down to a completely new layer using several different sanding sponges, ranging from 220 grit to 500 grit. This allowed me to get the maximum smoothness for the wood and get rid of any unsightly marks that I may have left during the build. I then moved on to staining using red walnut colored gel stain so that it stuck on the stock bigger, and applied multiple coats over several days to ensure that the color really got into the hardwood stock of the rifle. After this was complete, I treated the stock with boiled linseed oil to give it a sort of shine, and have been treating it daily since to build up a coat of this linseed oil and give it that luster. The barrel was then blued as well taking care to make sure that any oils that I had gotten from my hands onto it were cleaned off. I used the Birchwood Casey bluing kit, and the barrel turned out very well, suffering from many spots or damage due to poor cleaning or bluing. Then I drifted the sights into the barrel to make sure that they would fit, and found that the front sight fits loosely, so I will need to work on that in the future. Then I re-put the gun together and ensured that all the pieces functioned together and did not break during the reassembly at any point, and set it up on my mantle.